Miyelani Mkhabela, Chief Economist at Antswisa Capital, joins us now to talk about the upcoming midterm budget statement. So, Miyelani, very good evening to you. Thanks for taking the time to speak to us. So, it's really hard to recall when last we approached a midterm budget statement with anything resembling optimism. But can we hope that there aren't any severe negative surprises or revisions in store? And if so, what would be the worst news that we'd receive?
I think the main important thing that we are going to hear is like a challenge in terms of revenue collection. That could be a challenge because the economy hasn't been performing very well. And then we already know that our unemployment is very high. So that will cause revenue collection to be lower, even more than whatever could have been expected. And if probably they have tried to expand the economy with around 20 to 30% in these 30 years, I think that could have probably created enough jobs that could have assisted the government to have enough revenue collection. And such, by now, it hasn't happened. And, you wouldn't really expect to increase, whether it could be personal income tax, wealth tax, or it could be VAT or corporate income tax from, the same people that are already committing to that, to such a broad revenue. But if the economy is not broadenized, there will be nothing that the South African economy probably will run into to search for additional revenue. I think that is the first part. The second part is the challenge with state-owned enterprises that have been undergoing turnaround strategies, year on year. Like when you look at Transnet, there is no year that has ended and Transnet is not on a turnaround strategy. Probably from 2009, every year Transnet is having a turnaround strategy, and nothing has worked in any of such a turnaround strategy up until this time. You look at Eskom, is the same issue, and these two state-owned enterprises are stretching the fiscal for the government to levels that are unexpected, because these are commercial entities that are supposed to be self-sufficient and run by itself with their CEOs and not really rely on government. And in that, they will be capable, and such as well hasn't happened. So the third element, it could be issues that relate to whether there will be a cut in government spend. And in my focus, or our focus, we expect government to rather cut spending as opposed to be extending the government debt, which it could cause problems for future generations. But it could be good if they work with what they have in the budget, and then they really try to cut spending, whether it could be in infrastructure or any other thing.
Let's look at some of those areas. Let's look at some of those areas. I'm saying let's look at some of those areas. Corporate income tax rate has been a debate that's been ongoing. Many saying it should be increased, but is it unlikely to be reduced? And what about fuel levy increases? Is that a possibility?
There is no possibility in anything in tax. It could be craziness because the economy is not doing well. So when you increase corporate tax, which means companies will cut employees so that they can manage to pay tax. So you look at that element, so that you are creating a crisis. And then corporate tax it's a third layer in terms of our revenue collection. So when you increase as well personal income tax, at what level will you increase it? You are causing problems because middle class and the working class are already struggling. They can't manage with whatever they have. They are unable to pay even their committed installments from 2019. So that could be a crisis. What the government needs to do is to look at plans to expand the economy and have the 10 million people that are unemployed to be integrated in the employment pool, and they can probably get a revenue from that. With VAT, you can't increase VAT because when you have to increase VAT, the poor or like this, all these retail companies, they are not asking whether you are the poor or the wealthiest person when you come and buy. So the poor will be expected to pay more from the 350 or the 1,000 that they are giving or they are receiving from government. So such as well is craziness. It wouldn't work. So nothing on income tax that could really work. In all these tax brackets, it could be a craziness if they think of increasing that. And any advisor that could really lead to that, it could be the same madness that they have done with the with increasing VAT from 14% to 15%. Such was craziness because the economy couldn't really pick on that with this poverty that the country is experiencing. So their advisors might not be doing right. And at the same time, I think the National Treasury is just struggling with their problems.
Just a final question.
On a day-to-day, I will say.
Just a final question, because we mentioned in an earlier conversation that it is election year next year, so government isn't expected to increase taxes, but that means that it also needs to increase its borrowing. I'm just wondering, the market reaction to this, would it be adverse upon such news, and the current bearish outlook of the rand, is it already priced in if this happens?
How you manage a state, you don't manage a state and the budget based on whether there is an election year, you want to accelerate some service delivery. If they wanted to do service delivery to the people, they should have done it from the beginning of the term. You can't really force to do things that should have been done in 5 years in a period of a month. So if there is no funds, they have to cut spending. And they have to as well think about cutting senior employees that are depressing state-owned enterprises and government departments. And if they do that, such a burden from revenue could be reduced as well. So they need to look at ways that government needs to go lean, and they create jobs that the budget mustn't be for government employees. The budget must fund projects that can build the economy, as opposed to what they are doing currently.
All right, thank you so much for speaking to us, Miyelani Mkhabela, on the outlook for the midterm budget statement.